What does MasterChef, Ultimate Braai Master, Wheel of Fortune, and Deal or No Deal have in common? They have Geoffrey Butler in common, an incredible reality TV show director, and he is right now on the show on Filmworks. Fantastic. Boy, Joffrey, thank you so much for opening up a slither of your time just to be part of the episode. It's an amazing to have you here, dude.
Thanks for having me, Jacobus.
Joffrey, when you were a boy watching TV and seeing this world unfold in front of you, what gravitated you toward the film industry and TV industry?
So I actually grew up next to a drive-in theater about 100 years ago. And my parents used to take me there every single week to this drive-in theater, and there were double features. So from a young age, my father was quite a big film buff. So he introduced me to films on the big screen. So the whole cinematic experience of watching films was kind of like my upbringing. And sort of to be taken away on this experience of movies, um, in the 80s in South Africa was quite a formative experience. It sort of affected how I saw the world, made me realize what world I want to be in. And yeah, I guess it all kind of started there.
Beautiful. A young man enchanted by the incredible world of film. And oh man, I think the era of drive-throughs
Mm,
is a lost era
yeah.
because so many people that will never gain that experience. But at what point did you realize you have a natural inclination for direction?
I think it largely came about that I sort of didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do when I went overseas, and I tried multiple things. I tried insurance, I tried banking, I tried like all of these things. And to be honest, I wasn't particularly good at any of those things, and I wasn't passionate. I didn't really care for it, and I got an opportunity through an agency to do some work for a TV channel that was showing movies, TV shows, kids shows. And as soon as I walked in there, I was like, wow, this is where I need to be. And it just kind of, everything kind of clicked. It sort of aligned with where my passions were. And it all kind of started there.
It's a big shift. I think you are really doing a high level version of this. Now, how would you go from banking into the TV industry?
I mean, I started off as an editor. So my whole craft was building stories in post production. And obviously in post production, you are not just building stories, you're also crafting things with music, you're crafting things with various angles, maybe a little bit of engineering or manipulation here and there. And I feel like, despite the fact that all of these other sort of jobs that I didn't really contribute to film directly, what it did do is help me, I suppose, observe human nature. And I think so much of our work is about kind of reading people, understanding people, and I guess telling stories through that. So none of it was really a waste. As long as you're open to listen and to learn and to watch and observe, there's quite a bit that I think I was able to bring into the work that I do.
An editor is very reliant on a director and the camera team to give him an array of footage to build a story. What prompted you to move beyond editing and dip your own toes onto set?
I think it was, to be honest, it was trying to assert a little bit more control in the project, in terms of, as an editor, you've got to satisfy your director, who has to satisfy his producer, who has to satisfy the client, which could be the channel. So I think eventually I realized that, well, if I can direct my own stories, it gives me far more creative control in what I'm producing. And there's something quite beautiful about conceptualizing your work. Um, whether it be a paper edit or script writing, whatever the case may be, and then suddenly seeing it come to light. Um, they say editing is like directing the second time round. And that really is the case, because you'll have a plan for when you're shooting everything. And then when you get to edit suite, things sort of change. As long as you have all the elements that you need to make it work, um, something quite beautiful can come out of the edit suite.
How beneficial was it for you to be an editor first before you started directing?
I actually can't overestimate the importance. I think because I'm seeing in pictures and I'm cutting the whole time in my head, and because when I do a treatment or a draft, I've already edited it on paper. So it means that when I go on set, um, people often remark on how calm I am. And I think I'm calm because I'm already have planned how things are going to cut. And if something goes wrong or if something changes on screen, um, I'll already figure out a way to edit it or to reshoot that particular segment in a way that it'll work. So I think it gives you tremendous confidence, gives you authority as well. Um, and I think it also saves you time in post because everything is planned and thought of. It's not just shoot whatever happens and make it happen in post. One of the things I think I bring is that I have a shortened post production time because I've planned everything already, and it just means we can kind of be efficient in post
Wow.
production.
You really touched on planning there, and that's really what I want to get to is there are so many productions that you have worked on, and off camera we spoke about documentaries and reality TV series as well as corporate and shorts. But the reality TV series component is something that, although the word reality is in it, surely there must be a ton of planning that goes ahead. Tell me about that process of planning such a major show.
So I think you obviously get small scale reality shows, and then you get massive scale things like Survivor or MasterChef, um, or even Ultimate Braai Master. I did season 8, and no matter how small or how big it is, they always require planning. Planning in the sense that you're creating parameters. So uh, time is such a valuable resource, and if you haven't planned properly, uh, you're going to get stuck in post. So let's take it to the big format show. So I did MasterChef season 6, season 5, and MasterChef Celebrity. Now, for something like that, that is a huge big format show. You've got a head of culinary, head of content, you've got a DOP, you've got obviously makeup, wardrobe, um, you've got, I mean, there's so many HODs involved, obviously, units and all of those things. The first thing you do is you create a content grid. So your content grid is a plan for the next. So for MasterChef season 6 is 26 episodes. So you create a content grid for the 26 episodes. Those are kind of like your parameters. And then the big thing, the thread through with all reality shows is casting. Doesn't matter how good a director you are, it doesn't matter how beautiful the production values are. Everything, absolutely everything boils down to cast. So you've got to spend the correct amount of time choosing your characters. And that's obviously a part of the planning. So choosing your cast is very important. And then choosing your content grid, how you plan to use the sort of the mechanisms of the show. Like I said, with MasterChef, we have 26 episodes. Some of the episodes contain 2 challenges. You've got to be able to plan and work around that. Then obviously there's the look and the feel of the show. With Ultimate Braai Master season 8, we traveled all over the Western Cape. Now, obviously, I went on initial recce to lock down those locations. Then I did a secondary recce where I went with HODs to plan exactly where the tech line is going to be, all of that sort of stuff. And then, yeah, obviously with your DP, you plan the look and the feel and the texture of the show. But with reality, in fact, with directing any big format show or any big film, everyone wants a piece of you. So you've got to have an idea in terms of wardrobe, makeup, location, content. You've got to be aware of what you're planning for post-production. All of those things you need to be completely aware of. But as with all reality, planning only takes you to a certain point. Thereafter, within those parameters, you need spontaneity and you need people to be themselves on camera. And that you can't really plan. You just need to create the conditions that allow them to be as much of themselves as possible. Viewers can see when something has been overly engineered, or when something seems, a little bit fake. And I think the interesting challenge we have, I think, in South Africa is that culturally, we're generally quite measured. Maybe it comes from our history, but we all sort of try and get along. Sure, you might get those one or two characters that are a bit more combative or a bit more confrontational, and that always makes for great TV. But you don't just want larger life characters. You also want the introvert that kind of observes, that articulates himself well. Um, so yeah, it's almost like you're creating parameters for social experiments. Um, and that's, yeah, I've sort of touched on it very briefly, but yeah, there's a lot of planning that goes into it, but you can only plan so much.
I love this. And you spoke about characters, that's our cast, and certainly there must be a diverse bunch of cast that as the show progresses, you start learning what quirks they have and how you can start building stories. Let's elaborate a little bit more on, finally, we're in production, we have our cast, we have our crew, the look is nailed down. How do you build those story arcs? Or how do you get the best from your cast, those emotional tones? Do they narrate themselves? We see a lot of interviews on reality TV series. And how do we build those arcs?
Every reality show is designed to exert pressure, to put people under extreme stress. And that's going to unfold on camera. And that content grid that I spoke to you about, that all is designed to exert as much pressure as possible. And a good reality series will exert more pressure the further you go. And obviously, if they're competing for a big prize, that's pressure in itself. So exerting pressure is a big part of telling the story. Also, a conventional use is obviously diary cams. You go through, after you've shot everything, you go through all of the sort of story beats that have happened, and you interview your contestants one by one, and you intercut that in post production. And with music, with editing, obviously you can sort of amplify the drama, elevate the jeopardy. But I also think in terms of directing these things, it's quite important to identify the stories as they're unfolding and sort of allow it to breathe. Yeah, you've got to kind of observe which stories to follow as you go along. The other unfortunate nature of reality is that you always shoot a tremendous amount of material. And I guess it's our job as directors or producers and HOD content just to narrow everything down and say, let's focus on your A stories, your B stories, and your C stories. And that's sort of, that's how reality show gets made, I suppose.
Tell me about the diary cams. Is there someone allocated to each of the characters or groups to follow them, to get those questions down, to build their stories once the action unfolded?
Absolutely. So in big reality format shows, you have what you call content producers or content directors. They're literally on the floor or out in the field, and they are asking questions on the floor. And obviously making notes. And once that scene is shot, they'll come back to me. We'll go through all of the big content beats, and then we'll see which ones we're going to commit to. And then the diary cams, you'll have 2 or 3 happening at once. Like I said, time is a valuable resource. So you often do these things parallel. Everything's happening at the same time. And you interview everyone at the same time. And you need to do it in a way that obviously tries to get them to talk about it in the present tense, to go through those emotions. And that takes a bit of time. But it's a necessary tool.
Love that. Let's talk about that vast amount of data that you need to manage and process in post-production. We've run multiple cameras, multiple groups of people, and I'm sure the initial episodes where there's a lot of contestants, that's where most of the data capturing happens. Or is that an assumption that's wrong? Tell me more about how to manage all those stories, all those cameras, all that data, and start building out from there.
So I like to work backwards. So in terms of, for example, Braai Master or MasterChef, the way I think about tackling these things is you sort of work backwards. You go to the elimination and you cut that first. That's where things come out that the contestants did wrong. Then you leave out the main challenge and you go back and you go into the brief. or the walk-in. And once you've got that in, you've kind of got your top and tail in, and now you can see, okay, I've only really got about, if I'm making a 46-minute show, I've only really got about maybe 30 minutes that I can really put together. Now, if you know you've only got 30 minutes, when you go through that event, so for example, the cooking in Braai Master or MasterChef, you kind of only go for the high dramatic moments. And in terms of the way we shoot it, in the beginning, when you've got 20 contestants, it's impossible to give everyone equal amount of time. So what happens is I'm in something called an OB van, outside broadcast van, and I've got all the monitors available, and I'm watching everything that's happening. I can see when someone's having a meltdown, when someone's food is hopelessly burnt. I can see someone who's really struggling, and I've got an earpiece to the content directors, and I'll say to them, okay, you need to go to contestant A, find out what's happening there. So we still kind of shoot the same amount of material, but it's just a bit more concentrated. But yeah, I mean, your Kubus, for example, if you've got a 2-hour challenge and we've got 8 cameras, it's 8 times 2 just for the challenge alone. And then it's the same with the briefing, same with the tasting, same with elimination. So you are going to get a lot of material. But in post-production, you have someone who we call string outs. They put everything together on a timeline, get rid of all the fluff. You've got someone who looks for moments in diaries. Then you've got an assistant editor who kind of does a rough edit. And the editors will sort of focus on that. Then I'll see a first draft, second draft, third draft, and then it goes to producers and and to the channel eventually.
So it really is an army of a well-organized machine that needs to be there right through, from planning to production to post-production, already saving you time by removing the fluff. They already know what those stories are that you want to focus on. And for that reason, you only get to see what you need to see. You don't have to work with them through all that vast amounts of data. Is that correct?
It's 100%. I feel quite strongly also about production values. I like everything to look as slick as possible, but when it comes to the challenge itself, that should be as rough and as wild as possible, and that's reality. But I'm sort of looking, when it comes to me, I'm sort of looking for, are the stories being told correctly? Is the music enhancing the stories? Is it clashing? Is it capturing the tone correctly? And then as the edit progresses, I'm obviously looking for how polished the edits look. Like, it can't be jarring for the viewer. And I think that's always something that's been quite important to me, is to make something look as premium and as international as possible. And obviously, when you've got 8 cameras, it is possible.
Now, I'm pretty sure you have massive imposter syndrome walking on the set of your first reality TV show. Talk me through some of the hardest lessons that you've learned as a director.
Oh, I love that question. I think because my background was sort of asymmetrical, I started off doing fashion, then I moved on to lifestyle, then I moved heavily into documentaries, then I moved into food, and then I've sort of subsequently moved into films as well as reality TV. I think what's absolutely important is that you surround yourself with specialists. I work with great DPs like Chris Lotz, Gilbert Lowe, Sunil Haasbrook. Those guys also work in film as well. And if you surround yourself with specialists, the best assistant director, the best art director, head of camera you can trust. If you work around a team of specialists, you're already in a very good position. And I learned very quickly that you've got to speak your mind. If something feels slightly off on set, when you get to post, it is unusable. You've got to follow your instincts. And I think with my sort of editing background, I think I always come onto set with confidence. But obviously, from doing small reality shows to suddenly doing the ultimate Braai Master, where you're traveling on the road with like 70, 80 crew, to MasterChef, where you're nearing on 100 crew, or another travel show I did called Showville, which is also a crew of 60 odd traveling around the whole time, where you haven't had a chance to recce the locations. Having a team you can trust is 100% pivotal to your confidence and to just allowing you to do your job.
Well, there's still, all those eyes are looking at you. So that's back to planning. So you have to be the guy that communicates that plan, empowered by our HODs, and then have to execute, specifically in a scenario where there was no recce done before, and still you need to build out a story in some way. I almost imagine you're in the middle of nowhere, rocking up there. What is the first thing that, let's say, for instance, in an unplanned recce situation, how do you work with your HODs to build out your story on a little bit more of an impromptu style?
Okay, before I do the story, it's because you've got so much crew and you've got units and you've got gear. The first thing I want to do is establish a tech line. So I'll go through with my DP, gaffer, unit, and we'll go out and we'll have a look and we'll see, okay, these are the most favorable locations. It's best for sound, best for visuals. You can do diary cams here. Let's start building our tech line here. So once that sort of machine is busy building, I will then go to my content producers. We'll sort of decompress, talk through everything that's, where we're at the moment and how we're going to pursue it. And then, yeah, obviously, all of those things take time. But the main thing is to get the structure right. So that's why I say I get my DP, the gaffer ready. AD needs to be on my side, knowing what's happening. So all of those things are quite important.
There's quite a shift happening in the TV industry. We are moving from conventional broadcast to streaming. We are moving from YouTube also now being a big player. Tell me more about your boots on the ground. What are you experiencing in the TV industry happening at the moment?
I think, first of all, I want to say that I'm quite excited about the opportunities that lay ahead. With AI, as a creator, there's so much that you can do that is now accessible and affordable and allows you far more creative control in the shortest space of time than ever before. The trade-off, obviously, is that jobs are lost. And I think what has to happen in this era is you have to be adaptable. You have to learn, you have to educate yourself, and you have to be adaptable. And you can't ignore AI and the impact that it's having. You have to master it and you have to learn as much as you can. I think in terms of reality TV, that's one sort of aspect that AI can't really sort of replace. It can make your job easier. I use AI for things like, sorry, and this might be controversial, but I use it for things like storyboards. I'm able to achieve much quicker what I need through that process rather than, having to go back and forth with someone. So I find storyboards are much quicker, much easier. Scripting as well. Obviously you want to work with a scriptwriter, you want to work with a storyboard artist, but when you've got so many economic and financial pressures, sometimes a lot of the groundwork has to be done the cheapest and most effective way, and often that is through AI. It's also a scary time. I've seen incredible commercials made, incredible corporates made through AI, and it costs like a fraction of the budget. Conversely, I think people are also getting a bit oversaturated with seeing AI visuals. It gets a bit tiring. People want to see the real thing sometimes. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I don't know if AI is going to, well, obviously AI is going to improve and evolve and be a lot more lifelike. But I think from a reality TV perspective, people still want to see people they can relate to, they can identify with. They still want to see real stories. And I think that's still going to be with us for some time.
I want to finish off by just reminding us of a young Joffrey. He's entering the industry now. He's dreaming of being part of the TV industry, but this time, he's 21. He wants to enter it. What advice would you give to him?
I think in a way, it's quite as I said, it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time to enter. It's also a terrifying time to enter because things are changing so much. I think because of the pace of things changing, I'm always an advocate of having a mentor someone that you can build a relationship with, someone you can trust, someone that kind of is on your level, who resonates with you, who can show you the ropes. I think that's quite important. That's like old school knowledge that can be handed down. To the 21-year-old, I would also say, educate yourself. Their films are now accessible on a scale that has never been accessible before. Educate yourself on European films, on world cinema. Don't just learn about from Hollywood movies. There is so much to learn out there that can inspire you. What I do, for example, is I watch one movie a week, world cinema. I've got like a whole spreadsheet, a list of things, because you can put those things off for the rest of your life. I take screenshots and I say, this is a great shot because of X, Y, Z, for whatever technical reason. Build up your library of images that inspire you, and eventually you'll start to find your own voice. And I think as a 21-year-old, the sooner you can find your voice, the sooner you can start to educate yourself, the sooner you can learn from a mentor, things like discipline and time and planning. The sooner you can do that, the better sort of position you're in. I also think, obviously when I got into the film industry, it was very rigid, very regulated. I think now what's exciting for a 21-year-old is that the sky's the limit. There's so much education out there that's freely available. Use it as much as possible. But the big thing I would tell a 21-year-old is, don't spend too much time on theory. You need to work in theory, but you also need to do the work. So if you can run parallel like that, then you'll sort of be head and shoulders above most people.
Joffrey, that was so insightful, and thank you so much for enabling us to learn from your experience, to understand the disciplines, to just lift a little bit of a curtain on the reality TV show as well for us. The excitement about it doesn't fade. It's always exciting, and we love the work that you do. Thank you so much for sharing with us, and we look forward to seeing your work in action again.
Thanks for having me, Akuma. Great to chat. Thank you very much.